And we are back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, I'm going to be talking about a Lakers trade idea according to this article. And obviously it's not going to be a really strong trade because the Lakers are sort of capped at that second apron, and the Lakers are terrible in free agency and they're terrible with trades. Like, it's just amazing how bad they are in free agency, and it's even crazier how bad they are with trades. But teams, they don't really like dealing with the Lakers. Like, I don't know what it is, but a lot of teams in the NBA, they just like avoid the Lakers in terms of trade talks, and a lot of players, they also avoid the Lakers in terms of contract negotiations, because either they're afraid of playing in Los Angeles or they're afraid of playing with LeBron, whatever you want to call it. But playing with LeBron, obviously, there's a lot of pressure because not only are you expected to perform and win a championship, you're also most likely going to get scapegoated. I feel like the Westbrook trade over to LA, it really opened a lot of players' eyes on, just how the Lakers media treats a lot of their, important and key players, because Westbrook was crucified by the Lakers media. He deserved it, but a lot of the players, they would much rather not play under that market where they have the stress of constantly performing well and the stress of, constantly meeting these expectations of, and championship aspirations. So a lot of players, they would rather avoid playing in a huge market like that as opposed to playing in a different market that doesn't crucify all of their, players and their fans. Obviously, the Sixers, they aren't really that much better in terms of crucifying their players. The Knicks are another example of players that get crucified if they don't play well. Even the Boston Celtics, they crucified Kyrie Irving when he wasn't playing well for Boston. And, there's a lot of markets that don't really give a lot of the players that much respect when they play well or when they play bad. But the Lakers, with Westbrook and their recent little debacle, I guess you could call it, it was really, really bad. Like, the media was ruthless with Westbrook. And I can't really blame the media for that. Westbrook was hitting the top of the backboard when he was shooting some of his shots. Like, how are you not going to talk down on someone like that? Like, that's just, I obviously, as a fan, I understand where the anger comes from, but also, as an analyst, you shouldn't really crucify a player like that. Fly is in my way. You shouldn't really crucify a player like that just for taking, just that horrible of a shot. But at the same time, it was Russell Westbrook, and he was playing really, really bad on the Lakers. Now, whether it be a bad fit, whether it be just him playing bad, you can call it whatever you want. He just wasn't good for the Lakers. And I feel like that sort of cripples the franchise and their ability to sign free agents and their ability to do trades. Now, this trade idea is coming in from Bleacher Report. Again, now the title of this is "The Lakers Need Wendell Carter Jr. Trade After Disappointing Offseason Amid NBA Rumors." Now, the quote. They use the word "need," right? Like, they need Wendell Carter Jr. And the average NBA or the casual NBA fan is probably not even going to know who Wendell Carter Jr. is. Because, again, he plays on a relatively low market for the Orlando Magic. Now, the Orlando Magic, for some reason, they barely get any media coverage. Paolo Banchero, who was a fantastic player last season, was barely even talked about. And even in the postseason, the Cavs and the Orlando Magic series, one of the very few series that ended up going to 7 games, was barely even talked about. So, after LeBron signed his 2-year, $101.3 million contract, taking $3 million less from the Lakers than he could have signed for in a concentrated effort by the player and organization to keep the team under the second apron of the NBA salary cap. So the deal would allow the team to retool the roster and make a significant free agency signing or trade to return the Lakers to a legitimate Western Conference contender, right? Now, this team has been oddly quiet in the entirety of the offseason and is arguably one of the biggest losers in the NBA offseason. If it wasn't for the Clippers letting Paul George walk in free agency, the Lakers would most likely be the biggest loser in the entirety of free agency. and the entirety of the offseason. They would be tied along with the Atlanta Hawks, who in my opinion messed up the draft, and they also messed up the DeJounte Murray trade that sent him to the Pelicans. I really don't know what Atlanta was doing. But the deal would allow the team to retool the roster, make significant changes, and while it has been quiet, Sean Devaney of Heavy.com reported that Magic Wendell Carter Jr. remains a potential trade candidate for the team. Now, I say this now, and I bet you in like 24 hours, the Lakers are going to be like, oh, we're not interested in Wendell Carter Jr., or Wendell Carter Jr. moves on to a completely different team, and the Lakers miss again. But he wrote, and one executive said he's still the kind of player the Lakers should be looking for. Fairly young, probably a little undervalued because of his red flags, and the red flags being injuries, and still tapping into his skill set. The executive told Heavy Sports, the contract is right, it makes sense for them, that's a guy that's monitoring, but a lot of teams are as well. That's a guy they're monitoring, but a lot of teams are also monitoring Wendell Carter Jr. as well. Amid an offseason that did not net the team a legit third star to go alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis, the Lakers need the Carter Jr. trade to erase some of the disappointment, at least, according to this article. Carter is, he's 25 years old and coming off one of the most productive seasons of his career in terms of shooting, knocking down 52% of his shots from the field for the third consecutive season. And he was better than ever from beyond the arc, hitting 37% from his three-point attempts. Now, if you guys remember from the previous segment, I said the Lakers are allergic to three-point shooters, so maybe they don't even want to touch Wendell Carter Jr. at all. Like, oh, he could shoot threes? Never mind, get rid of him. It's unbelievable how they handle free agency. He averaged 11 points, 6.9 rebounds, 1.7 assists, and 0.6 steals. And he could stand to develop his shot a bit more, something the Lakers and their new coaching staff under J.J. Redick could help with, and his injury history is a little bit concerning, especially when you consider how Anthony Davis also has an injury history, and so does LeBron James recently playing with the Lakers. Carter dealt with 3 knee injuries, a bad hand, and a bum back in 2024, and he's played in just over 52 games per season over his career. But despite the issues surrounding his health, Carter is someone in the 5 position who can stretch the floor and give the Lakers an outside perimeter shooter. But again, the Lakers are allergic to three-point shooters. But again, this could be really beneficial for AD, who would rather play the power forward as opposed to playing center for some reason. I don't know what it is, but Anthony Davis would much rather play the power forward even though he's clearly a center. Now, let me just go ahead and see that he has 7 seasons of experience, but is still relatively young, makes him that much more intriguing to the team, and as does his contract. So he's entering his 3rd year of his 4-year deal that will pay him $11.9 million this year, and it's a team-friendly number, and it would definitely help the Lakers avoid, not go too far into the second apron. And that contract, coupled with his potential, what he does well, and how that meshes with the Lakers would like to do on the court, makes Carter a worthwhile trade candidate for the team, and one that it must explore amid an off-season that has been anything but what the most prominent organization in the league had hoped for. Right. So again, I feel like this would be a decent move for the Lakers, but one of the things that the article doesn't really talk about is how he's been playing in a relatively low market. Now, I mentioned the low market previously, but let me go ahead and explain what I mean by that. Now, when you're in the low market, you don't really get that much attention whether you play good, right? Which is what I mentioned with Paolo, but it also goes both ways. You don't get that much attention when you play bad. So there's a lot more, if you go to somewhere like LA, there's a lot more pressure on you to play well, whereas suppose you're playing in Orlando where there's not really much pressure on you to play at all. And so going to a market that's, relatively, from a market that's relatively low to a market that's relatively high in terms of, NBA players and NBA coverage, right? It's a really big jump, and it's something that not many people really know how to handle. right? Like, all of a sudden having these expectations to constantly play well, and all of a sudden having all of these critics on you after you don't play well is going to be a really big change and a big difference in terms of, like, you know, the environment that he's been dealing with, as well as, you know, his style of play and things of that nature. So I really think that, you know, the article sort of undermines this and just how it affects some of these players, because again, Russell Westbrook, when he was on Washington, it's a relatively low market. He was getting paid zero attention to when he was playing bad. Like, there was barely any media coverage when he was playing bad. But when he was playing good and getting so many triple-doubles and averaging a triple-double for the Washington Wizards, like, you know, he was getting a lot of praise for it. So there was more praise when he was playing good, but there was almost zero criticism for when he was playing bad. And spoiler alert, he played bad in a lot of those Washington games. Like, yeah, he would get a triple-double, but his shooting and his turnovers were ridiculous. But that's besides the point. So with that, we are out of time for this fourth segment. So now we will go ahead and go into the final segment, where for some reason it was a little bit of a debate, but a lot of people were debating Kevin Durant's height yet again. So I will go ahead and give my opinions on his height, and I will explain that right after this short break. So be sure to stay tuned.